I've made no less than 4 State of the Collection videos, but this one's a little bit different and I'm going to tell you why. You see, my collection has forever been evolving, but I feel I've got to a point where I don't really want to flip anything. And to be honest, I'm finding it hard to discover anything that I believe is better than an alternative to my present collection. At one point, I owned no less than 43 watches. I now own 28, but that includes an investment watch, a golf watch, and an inexpensive beta watch that I wear for carrying out voluntary work. Leaving only the 25 to be worn on a rota basis. I'm not going to talk through all the watches in detail, but will do my best to give you an overall view of my present collection. Now this may sound a little bit conceited, and perhaps it is, but I believe my collection may be one of the best budget stroke mid-quality collections available anywhere. Of course, if you know otherwise, please let me know. You see, I think it is a bit of everything, including mainstream brands, micro brands, mechanicals, quartz, sports, divers, field, pilot, and even watches that are a little bit dressy. All I'm presently lacking is a vintage watch, and that's because I can't find a good example of the one that I used to own in the 1970s. First up is my investment watch, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual. Some enthusiasts hate the idea of anybody buying a watch to make money, but I feel watches are no different to any other commodity. Of course, that doesn't mean I can't enjoy it whilst I own it, albeit very carefully. I'm the first to admit that any luxury watch costs more than its genuine value, but I have to say this Rolex is close to perfection. The 904 stainless steel feels like silk. The indices are made of 18 karat white gold. It's incredibly comfortable, and the in-house automatic movement only gains 1 second every 4 days. I particularly like the fact it's quite understated, and unlike the subby, I'm unlikely to get mugged for it. My only other luxury watch, although I think it's more a semi-luxury watch, is my Tudor Black Bay 36. This doesn't quite have the specification of the Rolex, but I actually prefer the aesthetics and the clasp. This has got a top grade Sellita movement, and whilst not COSC certified, it does run well within those parameters. The watch's highlight is its incredible lume. Now moving down in price, but not so much in quality, is my Christopher Ward C63 Sealander GMT. I think it's fair to say this is probably my favourite watch at the moment. Whilst I'm more of a bracelet sort of guy, I absolutely love this tied strap, as it's incredibly well made and it's very comfortable. The case and its finishing is absolutely incredible, the dial is interesting, and the Sellita GMT movement is extremely accurate. This is just one of my 3 Christopher Ward watches, and I would strongly recommend any of them to you. Now, up until now, all 3 watches I've shown you aren't particularly affordable, so allow me to show you something that costs considerably less. On that point, I should make it known that the majority of my watches are bought used, and this in turn has saved me a lot of money. Don't forget, most quality watches are owned by enthusiasts, and enthusiasts tend to be very careful. This is a very recent purchase, it's the Atticus Meteora. This is an American-based brand, whilst the watches will almost certainly be made in Asia. It's got a Miyota 903 movement in it, and the overall quality is outstanding. Bought new, these still aren't fantastically cheap, but if you manage to pick one up used, expect to pay about half the price. Now this has got a silver linen dial, and in my opinion it's a real head turner. Another particular favourite of mine is this Perenera Rogue. This is a Romanian brand, but manufactured in Switzerland. I particularly love the colour of the dial, and the ceramic surrounds and the bezel, it makes it quite unique. It's a 200 metre skin diver, and it's got a Sellita SW200 movement inside it. I had to regulate this when I first got it, but it now runs within a few seconds a day. I've got a couple of divers in my collection, which are as cheap as chips, whilst made to an excellent standard and spec very well. There's a Phoibos Voyager 3 with an Annex 35 movement, and a Reverie diver with the Miyota 9000 series movement. I believe both look terrific and are almost certainly worth more than what you can actually pay to land one. One of my favourite brands is Nodos, and I've got 2, the Sector Field watch and the Contrail with its GMT bezel. They're an American brand and rarely become available on the UK market. They're hand constructed in the US, as well as being QC checked and regulated there. The finish and quality of these watches, considering the cost, is actually outstanding. My only watch with tritium tubes is my Bullfireman Nightbreaker. These aren't particularly cheap, but are Swiss made and very highly thought of in the watch world. As good as any lume may be, nothing beats tritium, and this should be shining bright for about another 20 years. Unfortunately, it's got a butterfly clasp, and like many enthusiasts, they aren't my favourite. Now this watch goes totally against the grain for me. It's got a mineral crystal, the quartz movement, and it's a chronograph. These are all things I tend to steer clear of, although I fully appreciate the advantage of quartz movements. This one just works perfectly though, and when I wear it I can't help but keep glancing down. It is of course the Yema Rallygraph, and it's got a Seiko VK64 movement inside it. I am fortunate enough to also own 3 flight watches, a Seagull 1963, a Yema Flygraph, and a beautiful Glycine Airman. Most Airmans tend to be on the large side, but the one you see here is actually the double 12 and it's 40mm. The finish, the feel and the quality on the Glycine is absolutely outstanding. Mind you, the Yema has got an in-house movement, and the Seagull is actually fantastic value for money. Finally, my second hour Mandala. This is the watch that draws the most amount of attention on watch forums. If you don't like salmon dials, don't panic, it does come in other colours, but this is my favourite. It's an Australian brand and all of their watches are made to an incredibly high standard, especially considering the cost. However, if you want a good used one at a good price, be prepared to be patient. It took me over a year to track this one down. My rounded collection consists of 6 divers, 4 GMT watches, 2 with GMT movements and the other 2 with GMT bezels only, 2 field watches, 3 flight watches, 8 sports watches, 1 chronograph, a beta, a golf watch and my investment Rolex. I believe this is a real collector's collection, but I would love to know what you think in the comments below. I will now run the camera over my collection, so if you've got any questions regarding any of the watches, please don't hesitate to ask me about them. That brings me to the end of this review. If you've enjoyed it, please click on the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and enjoy the rest of your day.